Luann hissed as the cotton ball dabbed with alcohol tapped at the cut just below the bridge of her nose, the teen doing her best to fight back the tears and hold her position. Her hair was disheveled, and purple bruises had formed around her left eye, with another on her cheek. There was one rolled up piece of tissue plugged into her nostrils. The part was sucked, and her nose was soaked with blood, and she had various smaller bruises running down the length of her arms. Just hold still, sweetie. I know it hurts. Rita spoke calmly, applying more substance to her daughter's face. Lincoln stood next to his mother, holding a tray of first aid kit supplies that were pulled out from the bag by Rita's feet. Both mother and daughter sat in a couple of chairs as Rita did her best to heal her child. A stern masculine voice carried itself into the dining room from the entrance and behind the two of them. From the parapet, Luann could barely see her father's back just around the corner. Lincoln glanced backwards, watching his father lecture Luna while she sat on the couch before him. The musician was cross-legged, and her arms were folded, a scowl aimed at her father as he continued to chew her out. The next day, Lynn Jr. held a murderous intent at the corner of the eye, aiming directly for her older sister. The ponytail on the back of her head was practically undone, allowing some strands of hair to drape over her shoulder. Both girls had scratches and bite marks, covering their exposed arms, with a bruise forming near the corner of Luna's mouth, due to nearly busted lip, and Lynn sporting a nasty mar of purple flesh around her left eye. Lenny was with them as well, leaning on the side of her couch while holding an ice pack to her temple. The other young siblings watched as the event unfolded from upstairs. Lisa had her army protection helmet on, and the twins were wrapped in a suit of bubble wrap, and Lucy, not wearing any form of protection, just stood there while casting a look of disappointment behind her bangs. Despite having to be told to stay upstairs, curiosity got the better of them, especially after what they bore witness just a few minutes ago. If there was one thing that was noticeable about everyone in the house, there were still their nightwear. Lincoln then gave it an exasperated sigh, noticing that the light rays of the sunlight that started to peek through the curtains. It's too early in the morning for this, turning towards their leader. I suppose you're wondering why all four of my sisters look like they have been through the ringer, and while the sad part is, everything that happened could have been avoided if someone, he glanced over to Luann, listened to our warnings. The boy jerked a thumb over to the calendar tackled to the wall. Take a look at the date, and as you can see here, it's April 1st again. So you're wondering why my younger sisters are wearing body armor? It's pretty obvious. But if you want to figure out why I'm helping my mom treat Luann while dad is punishing Luna, let me start from yesterday. March 31st, the day before the holiday of that year, everyone besides a certain comedian of the Loud House dreads. It was one of those times most of the siblings would feel envious for Lori. She moved 2 months after graduating and is currently attending college as the same city Bobby and his family moved to. It's not surprising that the Casagrandes welcomed her with open arms and offered her a room so she wouldn't have to be lonely about housing. She then gets to go prank free while the rest of the Louds have to suffer. And mind you, regardless, it was rather difficult having to be one child leave the nest. Lenny in particular tried to stow away in the Casagrande's van, only for Lori to forcefully boot her out. The eldest child spent months coaching her younger blonde on the responsibilities of being the oldest sibling, and Lori felt that Lenny was ready to be the same, that she had to leave. Okay, mostly ready. She often called Lori for an advice on how to run a sibling meeting, keeping the two siblings from fighting, and being assertive when someone is being stubborn about following an order. Lynn especially had the misfortune of Lori screaming out at her while through the phone more than one occasion, and in all, Lenny eventually just became adjusted to living without a new roommate, and thankfully became accustomed to being in charge whenever the parents weren't around. The rest of the kids followed suit, with Luna often being Lenny's second in command when it come to just meetings and settling disputes. Although there was one less child in the house, not much to arrange with the family as whole. Lenny was now a senior in high school with Luna just a grade under, the same deal with Luann. Lynn was due to start high school soon, with Lincoln set to be in middle school. The sole loud boy has also grown, began to enter the early stages of puberty. As shown as the site slight increase of the height and smaller traces of baby fat disappearing from his face. The younger lads had also moved up a grade, except for Lily, who was still in daycare. However, the littlest lad was shown to have a better grasp of walking and running. You couldn't go anywhere without seeing her popping in and out of rooms, as well as speaking in small, incoherent sentences. Where was I going with this again? Oh, right. Anyways, most of the louds were scrambling around for preparations for the prank apocalypse that was due in the next 24 hours. Lisa was going to hide in her bunker. The twins had purchased multitudes of bubble wrap each day, and they were currently trying to fix up Lily in the way that wouldn't restrict her movement. Lynn was complying her sports gear form of a makeshift whip of body armor, and Lenny simply opted to use the inflatable prank-free suit in the family intended to use during that prank model incident. It was only one left that Lisa decided to trash to the others for their flawed design. If you want to look for Lucy, good luck because she'll be all disappeared and after eating breakfast that morning. The parents were a bit lucky due to having to work over the weekend, and Lynn Sr. in particular had a busy rush to deal with. The adults also banned Luann from sending any pranks at their places of business unless she wanted to be grounded until she was 18. Luckily, and Lori set up a group encouraging everyone to stay calm and try to survive. Yeah, they all had to deal with Prankzilla while she was comfortable 3 hours away from the chaos. Lincoln gave a shaky sigh of relief as he exited out of the bathroom, making a brisk walk to his bedroom, finished boarding it up, giving his attention to the reader. So it's the day before that dreaded holiday, and it's the weekend as well, but it's not enough to bring any of us some relief. As you probably saw, all of us are getting ready for tomorrow, and I'm about to commence the operation board up my room and hide from Luann all day, while thinking it was a shorter name for this operation. You might ask, Lincoln, why are you using this name of the same strategy when it didn't work like last time? And to answer that question, Luann can't use Ronnie Ann as bait since she moved, and the boy gave a wide grin. And after going back through Lisa's files, I came to the sound conclusion that my plan was foolproof up, and at that point, there was no way she could set up the prank in my room without me knowing. Walking past Luann and Luna's shared room, the boy paused and swore the utter English accent reached to his ears. Oh, fucking hell. The backpedaling for a second, Lincoln peered into the room. In the room of the domain of the two entertainers of the house only, one of them was present. Luna was sat on the chair with her drum set look of frustration aimed towards the object that was drawing her ire. Her beloved axe sat on her lap, with Luna's hands fiddling with the instrument as she tried to apply the new strings to the neck. The teen had a string on her lips as she began to wound it, and with the other of the cords up at head, making sure to keep it tight, but not so much so to the point where they break, however. As Luna was halfway to another turn, another string she tightened became loose, and she wrapped her fingers around the way they string, but they also caused her current string to start unwinding itself. Stay on there, damn it! The brunette swore, feral growl escaping from her. Lincoln then let out a take of the shape of his face. Luna usually had problems stringing her guitar. Today she seemed rather tenser than usual. She might have a cut every once in a while, usually out of surprise or a flash of anger, but she was usually chill when working on her baby. Luna? Nah, the boy called out. The girl then jumped out of her seat before whipping her head towards her bro. Jesus, mate, you really had to wear that freaking bell? Her tone was a mix of irritation and somewhat cold. Ha! Lincoln laughed dryly, letting himself into her quarters. I'm not Lucy. Need some help? He motioned to the instrument. Lucy gave a slightly humph before turning to her head and to the axe towards her brother. He gently took it in his grasp and held it steadily as Luna started redoing the string that intentionally came loose. So you okay? Lincoln asked. Luna shook her head. Nah, brah, just pissy, that's all. Why? Lincoln asked, raising an eyebrow. Is it because of what tomorrow it is? He moved a finger over to hold the doorknob of the string that was attached to while Luna ran down the neck and connected to the base. The musician gave a dry laugh. I wish it was where, but it's more complicated. She then stuck her tongue out, as if while carefully fitting in the string, seemingly satisfied for when it was secure. You know what happens when. Luna then looked at the door, in case if someone might have been prying to their conversation, cupping a hand into her mouth and lowering her voice. When a gal's having that time of the month happens. All the things Lincoln would have expected to hear about Luna's mood. The last thing was on the list. He had thought that it might have been due to the difficulty coming up with the lyrics for the song, or a bit of falling out with her bandmates, which happened twice, mind you. Instead, she was being treated by the possibility of the first person in the house to know his sister was dropping a few egg cells. Oh, was all Lincoln could let out, growing a bit uncomfortable at the subject. When did it start? Last week, Luna replied as she stared at the doorknob. These cramps are a killer, man. I used the pond once today and it still hurts down there, you know? Right, the boy muttered, a light blush creeping up on his face. Thankfully, the 12-year-old was used to the fact that his sisters would be going through their cycles. All of his older sisters were dealing with it, and his younger siblings would be dealing with it too. Thankfully, this was one of the things that his mother took full responsibility when it came to helping her daughters understand the process of becoming a woman. Didn't stop him from being dragged into the store with Lenny to find a box of tampons and being asked to which ones are better. He had to fight the urge to have Lisa comply wipe his memory from the incident, largely because knowing Lisa, she ended up erasing his entire mind if she screwed up. Lincoln then shook his head and disrupted the unpleasant memory before or it could take place, opting to focus on the issue at hand. Wait, shouldn't you be getting ready for April Fools? You know how Luann gets, and she says she was going to make this year even worse since she claims we're ready for it. He shuddered a little, remembering that sinister smirk Luann had did on her face after she managed to flag down the moving truck to get her stuff back. I think she's still mad about the one we pulled on her last year. Surprisingly, Luna shook her head. I ain't worried about that. Besides, she started off with making our double embarrass us like that, and Lou ought to be lucky it wasn't the real deal. Grabbing some scissors, she cut the string and gave it a few pulls to ensure it was tight enough. Normally, I'd be wetting myself and asking Lisa to help me camp in her bunker, but I'm just too much of a sour mood to care. So, Lincoln then let go of the axe and Luna inspected it. What you gonna do? Luna gave a light shrug. I just want to warn Luna I'm on the P, so she'll know not to prank me. Lincoln then gave a look of uncertainty. But what if she doesn't listen? She laughed at my face like last time when I tried to reason with her. The musician pierced her lips and the guitar down. I guess I'll ride that crazy train when it comes. I mean, Lou, who, who should know better than to mess with me when they're feeling sore down under there. Remember what happened with Lori and Lynn during that loaf of bread? The boy winced and as he recalled the incident, as if it happened just yesterday. Lynn mentioned that during that one time Lincoln believed Bobby was cheating on Lori, but she left out of that part that Lori had been going for her cycle at the time. It was likely due to Clyde being present, and would have to question now he was not dead if there had been another epic nosebleed, and to be fair, Lynn was aware of Lori's cycle until after she bruised her forehead. Lincoln didn't expect a loaf of bread because of so much damage. Then again, it was still frozen, and pulled the fresh out of the freezer. Luna then smiled and ruffled her brother's hair. Don't worry, dude. I'll be just fine. Lincoln then pierced his lips, still uncertain about her decision. However, the time was short, and that door wasn't going to board itself. He gave Luna a quick nod before exiting out of the room, making a beeline for the twins in order to acquire Lana's nail gun. Luann hummed to herself as she was walking through the front door, her clown wig tugged underneath the pit of her arm, while a styrofoam container was held in the palm of her hands. Her face was still adorned with the matching makeup, and in spite of losing the wig. Not that it mattered, as to Luann had planned on changing her wardrobe soon enough. If if you were to get close enough, one could smell the scent of chocolate that permeated from the locked holes in the container. A never satisfied client as Luann would usually boast. Upon shutting that door, the comedian paused upon noticing how silent it was in the house. She knew that her parents were at work, but none of the siblings had even planned today, unless. Luann's eyes widened as she still remembered so specific about the date. All right, she chuckled to herself. Pranksmas Eve. Bet they're still making up plans to hide this year. As she started up the stairs, I'll admit, though, they got me real good last time, so it feels weird that they aren't working together again. Upon reaching the top, Luann heard a door open to her right. Thanks to a nail gun, Lana. I'll return it April 2nd. She then glanced down towards the voice, spotting Lincoln walking out of the aforementioned tool. Make sure you keep the pressure set to the minimum, Lana replied, as she wobbled out like a penguin. Luann covered her mouth and her hand upon realizing her older sister covered head to toe in bubble wrap and duct tape. Too much and you might just shoot past through the door. Speaking of which, the 7-year-old put her hands on her hips. How come you wanted to oak ash instead of mahogany? Just in case if I need the wood off in emergency. See, Lincoln then said, and making a glance to his left, a chill running up his spine, recognizing his sister. Before Luann even had the chance to even greet him, the boy backstabbed to his room, shut the door, and swirling around in the echo throughout the hall, as Luann could see the nails being embedded into the door frame. The 15-year-old shook her head. Normally I find that rude, but Link is just stiff as a board. She chuckled to herself, mentally counting the number of nails poking through the door. Wow, that's twice as much as last time. Guess you could say he nailed it. The girl then let out a hearty laugh as she turned over towards her shared room. Hi, Luann. The brunette then halted upon hearing her name, turning towards her second oldest sister occupied. Luann then peeked through the open door, only to find an emptiness. Lenny? Up here, the fashionist answered. Glancing up, Luann saw that Lenny was floating up on the ceiling in that prank-proof suit that the family had used 2 years back. It was called Prank Me Not Poncho? Yeah, that's it. Guess Lenny's cord broke, and the younger sibling thought to herself, shouldn't you have waited till tomorrow to put that on? Don't worry, I fought a little head of that empty suit with snacks. As if to prove her point, Luann watched as Lenny took her arms out of their sleeves and started to fiddle around with something inside the suit. A moment later, a pack of chips was visible over the protective mask. Okay, Luann replied, still uncertain as her sister popped the cookie into her mouth. How are you supposed to? The girl's eyes widened as an idea formed in her head, giving a devilish smirk. Actually, never mind. See you tomorrow, Lenny. Luann chuckled to herself as she headed back towards her original destination. Luna was polishing her guitar with just a dust cloth when her roommate walked in. Judging by that smirk, he could tell that her sister had either thought up of some revenge scheme or was plotting a prank. Hey, Luna, y'all never guess what I got in store for Lenny tomorrow. Yep, it's the latter, giving a side glance at the 15-year-old. Does it have to do something with water? Pretty much, Luann replied as she walked past her sister, setting the wig and the container down at the desk. After opening a couple of drawers, the comedian pulled out a small washcloth that appeared to have smear stains on it. Those suits won't have some built-in bathroom thingy, right? She then pulled out a bottle of water and just poured in enough to wet the cloth. Her vision went dark as she scrubbed away the products that sat on her facial tissue. Luna then shook her head, giving the baby attention it deserves. Nah, Lisa said it compared to indigeneity of the suit, or whatever she said. That's not it. She then shot her head up, as one particularly dreadful idea came to her mind, giving her roommate in the stink eye. I hope you ain't planning on pushing Lenny out of the house while she's still wearing that thing. Luna then pulled the cloth away from her face, deadpanned in the showcase for all before directing at Luna. And risk Mom and Dad killing me? I'm not a monster. Turning her head back to the desk, she then veiled the cloth up in a bit before wiping her cheek. Sometimes I wonder, Luna muttered in the dark of the tone. Luann easily picked up. Furrowing her brows, the comedian wiping her head around. What's wrong with you? She then replied irritably as she sat down the cloth, not taking her eyes off of her sister. Wake up on the wrong side of the bed this morning? I'm going through the motions again, sis, Luna replied, meeting Luann's heated stare with her neutral face. You should have known that earlier this week. Oh, Luann dropped the glare, pursuing her lips, and leaned back on the desk. I kind of forgot about that ever since I even booked Solid this week. I haven't been able to plan much of anything for April Fool's Day. Luna then raised her brow as she set her axe on the stand. You're not doing anything major tomorrow? Sadly, no, Luann answered. Can you shut the door for a sec? I gotta change. Luna then moved her foot and placed it on the door, applying as much force as possible. And then when she pushed it away, the door didn't fully close, but it was enough to avoid the potential of someone catching Luann almost naked. The younger brunette then took her shirt off, revealing her small bra and held up what assumed to be her breasts, B-cup size. Naturally, Luna became more self-inconsiderate at the time, as she noticed her younger sister was maturing faster than she was, at least when it came to chest appearance. The musician could at least boast that she developed a bit of junk in the trunk within a few months. Walking over to the closet and fish out her usual blouse. I was planning on something big for this year. Think of it as a congratulatory surprise pranking for me back so hard with the moving van. Luann then paused as she moved out a few hangers out of the way. But around the time I picked up a few more clients for funny business, it'd be rude to ruin a child's birthday party just to prank you guys. Plus, I'd be missing out on the year earnings. Gotta make that cash, bruh. Gotta make that cash, Luna approved, folding one leg over the other. So, Luann continued as she stripped out of her clown pants. I figured that there was always next year and decided to go back to basics. She then grabbed the buttoned shirt and skirt, before shutting the door. You know, she turned towards her sister, simple stuff. As certain as Luann's words were, Luna wasn't too convinced. If you knew that Luann as much as she did, you'd have to give her a little security check just to be sure she's not fibbing. Giving her a quizzical stare. So, no more freak giant jello pranks? Nope, Luann replied as she put her shirt on. Raccoons? Dirty diapers? Luna then stuck her tongue out, remembering how her parents nearly got sacked with the trash fillers 3 years back. No, Luann paused, tapping her chin. Maybe it depends if Lily's trash hadn't been that emptied. Luna then hummed and fought, nailing to the couch to the ceiling. That was only one time, Luann raised a digit to express her point. Plus, I got grounded for 2 weeks after taking it all down, since you all keep asking. She folded her arms. It sounded like you wanted me to go all out this year. Just making sure, Luna smirked, getting out of her seat and then strolled to the bunk bed. Besides, you didn't think we're buying your word that you would stop pranking us. After that stunt you guys pulled, I figured you wouldn't, so I wouldn't even have to score a little. Luann then fiddled with her skirt for a moment. Once she got the buttons down, she soothed and then hemmed again to go get a bit of any wrinkles. Speaking of pranks, do you have anything you want to do for spring tomorrow? Luna then huffed a bit. Now, pass. Got too much pent-up stress to take in the fun. Aw, come on, Luann chided, a smirk drawing on her face. What's better way to do than wiping that frown and nailing a pie to someone's face? Fun for you, but ain't any my thing. Luna climbed onto the ladder on the end, scanning her bed for something. And I think it's better you don't try and prank me tomorrow. Last thing I want to do is regretting something, and there you are. She then reached under the covers and pulled out her iPod. Luann smirked, and her smirk never dropping. Sorry, Luna, but you know the rules. Anyone on our property during April Fool's Day is a fair game. Last I checked. Her lips then parted to show grinning teeth. We live here. Luna knitted her brows together before turning her head towards her roommate. And who made that rule? I did, 3 years back, and no one ever dared to say surprise otherwise. Not even Mom and Dad, so... The comedian's voice slowly disappeared as Luna stomped up to her. Luann could have swore that she saw a small fire lit up behind her sister's pupils. Luann, I'm only going to say this once. You'll pull a prank on me at any point tomorrow, and I'll throw you on down harder than the mosh pit at the Meg Swagger concert. Luann then shrank as Luna appeared over to tower her. Do not test me. The musician closed their distance with her, a venomous word until they practiced nose to nose. Luna backed off shortly after, keeping the stare trained on Luann as she flipped her headphones before walking out of the room. Luann then stared at the open door for a few moments, mouth agape as she was able to say something. Words refused to form in her throat as her brain kept trying to figure out what had just happened. Leaving the comedian in the state of silent shock, she knew that Luna would be rather difficult to deal with when she was that mad. But even when she was angry, she didn't get too much in her face unless you were about to trade blows. However, Luann felt almost as if she had been talking to a complete stranger, only reminding herself it was just her sister by the punk rock outfit that she always wore. Either Luna's cramps were really bugging her, or something else was setting her off, and the way her eyes looked glinted with total malice. A chill ran up Luann's spine with that image being stuck in her head. The comedian then sidestepped as she felt the side of her bunk, panting herself on the floor as she sorted out her emotions. Luann knew that her siblings hated it when she pranked them on April Fool's Day, but they did not express any extreme annoyance. In fact, they sure had tied her up in that cage one time, but it wasn't too difficult for it to break loose and spread chaos. She didn't fully understand why she trembled a bit at Luna's words. It might have been due to how legitimate sounded like when she'd been doing great harm, on the scale that wasn't typical sibling spat. Luann's eyes twitched a little, her knuckles beginning to turn white as she gripped the bed harder, her brows knitted together into a wide V shape, the longer she continued to dwell on that Luna's fret. Okay, so the house musician is acting a bit moody, but it's not like one of the acts that were weird when Clyde starts. When that cycle starts from what she has seen, Lynn is the worst out of all the older sisters. Do anything as much as look at her the wrong, and she'll be onto you like a lioness catching its prey. Lenny would act a bit depressed for a few days before she'd go back to her cheery self, and Luann in the similar case, she couldn't crack a joke all day and try to avoid moving around much until the pain in her regions subsided. Luann had a little idea of how her younger sisters would be affected when they eventually started. Although she assumed Lucy would stay the same, as Lola would be quite a handful, since she's already a brat at times. Lana and Lisa, who knows? And Luann is most certain that she'd have a kid of her own by the time Lily reached that age. And like it or not, the house's prized comedian, Luann had something of obligation to do on April Fool's Day. Call it pride stubbornness or what have you. But if she let Luna threaten her like to prank free day, soon to be of all the other siblings would do the same. The only exceptions, naturally, were her parents, their word law, no matter how you sliced it, and Luann would admit it was she had been pushing her luck, and over the years, Nub's subtitle to that threat of being grounded to the legal age was just a warning compared to any other for actions Rita and Lynn Sr. could thrust upon her. Stealing to her resolve, Luann got up and shuffled to her desk. Pulling out a sack of paper from one of the drawers, the comedian went to work into planning the simple, yet effective stunt to pull on her roommate. Luna was going to get her just desserts, whether she liked it or not, and nothing that little blowhard could do was to stop her. Dinner was relatively quiet affair, aside from the occasional small talk like, "How was your day?" or "Is anyone has plans for the weekend?" A few words were passed around, as everyone concentrated on eating their succotash. One seat was unoccupied, and that was a constant reminder that one bird has already left the nest. The parents already knew the cycle started in which their little home would eventually come to the point where all the cheers and shouts of their children would become distant memory. They were a little saddened that Lori was no longer around, but they were at least happy she was setting herself up for a great career. Unfortunately, April Fool's Day was around the corner. The parents knew that there would be some discontent around their remaining children concerning Luann. Speaking of which, the seat where Lenny usually sat was empty as well, as she was stuck into the ceiling in her suit. The parents noticed that the rest of their kids passing Luann a nervous glance on occasion. No doubt, no hoping that she didn't spring an early surprise at them. However, this worry was replaced by the possibility of another sister fight protocol taking place as Luann and Luna kept exchanging glares every few minutes. Their sitting positions was also another factor, usually being the chair space or even right next to each other. The two performers sat as far away, for never as the table which would allow. Being concerned brother he is, Lincoln opened his mouth to ask what he was eating, and as his sisters, only to get a short when Lola nudged him and shook her head. He then raised an eyebrow at her, to which the 7-year-old pulled his head down. "Don't! They'll end up fighting if you bring it up. And that was the last thing they need is you spilling secrets again." She whispered the tone, and that sounded more like an order instead of an advice. Lincoln then gave a deadpan look. "Oh, come on. That was only one time. And if they let this simmer, it'll be even worse than they do fight," he whispered back in annoyance. You weren't even supposed to get involved like last time, Lola retorted. Firstly, if you stopped using my room and taking my stuff, I would have. And second, you guys keep fighting for 3 days until Mom and Dad decide to end it. Third, I already said I was sorry. So do you tell me what we should do? Lincoln folded his arms, with Lola's heated gaze upon doing nothing and a crease in the indifference. The princess then looked at her two older sisters, who were no longer sharing their expression exchange and focus on cleaning their plates. For some reason, she couldn't go quiet to get. Luna felt that she had been the least approachable of the two. Granted, Luann was hard to reason around April Fool's Day, just ask Lincoln. But she appeared to be more irritated than just generally angry, thus it may be easier to sway her. Lola hummed and thought. Very well, if you'll calm your butt, we'll corner Luann and ask her what the deal is. She then took her napkin and proceeded to rid of her mouth of food stains. The loud boy gave a smirk triumph. Glad you finally seen things my way. Lola squinted her eyes, staring at nothing particular as she contemplated her relatively options. A small grin then formed behind the napkin as she held to her mouth, moving right past her leg towards her body. Giving a side glance at her brother, she swung it in his direction, feeling the sweet sensation of his foot, meaning of the shin bone. Lincoln's eyes popped open as pain shot through his leg, soon shutting his eyes in a bit of a black scream. His knee then bumped into the underside of the table, resulting in a loud clangs of dishes being heard around the two. Lynn Sr. raised a brow. You all right, sport? Linky's fine, Lola spoke in an overly sweet tone. There was just a spider on his leg. She gave a smirk while tilting his head towards the yelling boy. Is that right, Linky? Lincoln then nodded rapidly, giving a nervous smile. Lisa, who was sitting on the other side of Lincoln, gave a small huff at the obvious fid. Thank goodness Lenny is not present to hear that. On that note, who's going to take the dinner up to her? Rita asked, scanning for her children for volunteers. Lynn immediately raised a hand. I got it. Lucy grabbed her wrist and forced it back down. No, you don't. Last time you tried to bring up some dinner, you ate it before you got upstairs. Ha! Lynn scoffed, snatching her hand away. That only happened once. Actually, it happened 4 times, Lincoln added, scooping the remains of his food into his mouth. The jock sent an amused stare towards her brother. Says who, Mr. Trip on the last step? Oh, I'll do it, Lana piped up, giving a loud, satisfied burp as they're finishing her plate. And how do you know you just won't feed it to your pets, huh? Lola chimed as she gave her twin a stink eye. Soon enough for the siblings started to have a spat on their own. Lisa, Luna, and Lily and Luann remained quiet as they opted to quarrel over what was happening around them. Rita and Lynn Sr. looked at each other before simultaneously bringing the palm to their foreheads. Make no mistake, they loved their kids with every fiber of their being, and what didn't matter very much was annoying when the kids got into fight over simple stuff. As the argument started to get louder, the Partridges put 2 fingers to his lips before cutting loose with a loud whistle. The kids immediately clammed up before twirling their heads around towards their father. Says no one can decide who gets to do it, we'll just pick for you. Lynn then quickly stared and scanned over to his children, finally saying one, Luann, you can take Lenny's dinner up to her. Rita was quick to give a critical eye towards her daughter. Just make sure you don't put any extras in it like last time. Luann gave a shrug before finishing up her plate and excused herself from her table. Taking the plate, the brunette aimed to grab the Tupperware container to put what remained of dinner inside before sending upstairs to the second oldest sister. Shortly after Luann left, Lincoln and Lola immediately began to write short notes on their napkins before passing them to every of the other sibling besides Luna. Upon getting the short nods of approval, they knew what their plan was set. Thanks for dinner, Luann, Lenny cheered, as Luann handed her the container. Now how am I supposed to eat? The blonde stuck her tongue out, racking her brain to solve this dilemma. Oh, I'm sure you'll figure it out. Luann smiled as she stepped off the chair, and she used as a ladder before kicking it backwards to its original spot. Soon as Luann opened the door, she was met with all of her younger siblings, waiting just for her past the doorway. Raising a brow, the comedian was about to question them when she found herself getting shoved back into the room. Lana then shut and locked the door behind them, so no one could try and pry into her interrogation. Luna's in the bathroom, so we got 10 minutes tops, the young mechanic stated, before leaning on the frame. Oh, hey guys, are we having a slumber party? Lenny asked, although she was more confused than Luann as to why her siblings burst into her room. What the heck's going on? Luann shouted in annoyance, her fists firmly planted to her sides. What's going on is the beef between you and Luna, Lincoln stated. Yeah, you guys were giving each other the same look, and I'll give my rival sports team, Lynn added. Luann formed a half-adult smile. Is that what this is all about? Fine. She then folded her arms. Miss Moody Pants thinks I'm not allowed to prank her, just because she's going through... Luann then stopped herself, upon taking a note of below Lincoln's age in that room. That time of the month. Lenny and Lisa's eyes widened in surprise. Lynn visibly flinched, and Lincoln remained neutral as he already knew about Luna's deal. Lucy and the twins and Lily left confused by the phrase. The time of the month? Lola asked, wiping out her phone to check the calendar. A few pings later. Well, I'll be mad given how much of a psycho you become one day of the year. Her princess pointed accusingly finger at the comedian. Why do you go crazy on April Fools anyway? Lana asked next. Lincoln then gave an annoyed groan before turning to the girls. Girls, focus. We'll figure that out later. Turning back to Luann. What did Luna tell you exactly? She said she'd trust me tomorrow if I pull as so much as one prank on her. Luann then lifted a finger and forced point, putting it back down on the seat that was used to be Laurie's bed. Now I considered the statement since Luna sounded serious. However, I will not let this slide as she thinks she deserves a prank-free day just because she's more fouler than a chicken. Besides, she gestured to her siblings, you guys already have it. When I prank you on this day, why should it be different? I don't know, Luann. I think it's better to listen to her. Lyndon scratched her head. Remember that bread incident I had with Laurie? Luann gave a deadpan stare. You carried on just fine from what I remember. Lynn's eyebrows formed into a small V as she let out an irritated growl. I was almost knocked out into a coma for 6 hours because of her. Do you know how much frozen bread hurts? 'Cause that bruise I got instantly says a lot. Adding on to Lynn's example, the menstrual cycle, Lisa started before she was interrupted. Lisa! Lincoln, Luann, Lynn, and Lenny shouted before pointed at the four older of her siblings in the room. The progeny rolled her eyes. Oh, please, they would be in to learn of this eventually, and it saves the mother trouble explaining it to them anyways. The 5-year-old then pulled out a chart, with the same female sibling on top, and it had 2 graphs labeled depressed and hostile just inches before the title. I have compiled you this chart of basically from what I've observed from our past siblings above Lincoln's age. The commonly known as the period effects of the female gender, a variety of ways. Some, like Lenny and you, would remain depressive state until it's passed, but others like Lynn and Laurie would be more aggressive than usual. I also doubt that Laurie would be hostile in finding a new loaf of bread after being told. Otherwise, if she wasn't going through a cycle, however. She then pointed towards the hostile graph, and after further search online, I have found that it's uncommon for women, especially at a young age, to be rather uncooperative and more emotionally sensitive due to the pain they're experiencing. Older women, who have grown accustomed to it, may not have noticed it as I've studied their mother's cycle as well. The other siblings then cringed at the last part. No one wanted to debate on whether or not the little fact was a little disturbing than Lisa's poop study. Lucy began, shifting her weight onto one foot. What happens during a period? Well, that's easy. The walls of the 4 oldest siblings then cleared their throats as they glared at the genius. Catching the hint, Lisa took a second to correct her statement. Well, it means that you'll bleed from your nether regions due to your body releasing an egg cell for reproduction. It's not anything to be worried about, just a sign of maturing. Wicked, Lucy stated. Lola blinked twice, just to make sure she had everything in correctly once her brain finally registered Lisa's little lecture. Her eyes nearly popped out of her head. Ew, I don't want to go through that. Does that mean I'll lay an egg? Lana asked out curiously. It only took Lisa a few seconds to answer the questions. Too bad and no. Giving the attention to Luann, as I was saying, it appears that Luna's aggression is at the time high due to her beginning her cycle. Normally she would express annoyance at your pranking habits, but I believe that's not the case as of late, and it may endanger your overall health. Luann then pursed her lips. Could you make that a little clearer? She means you shouldn't prank Luna, or else she'll thrash you, Lynn replied. The comedian gave a little light huff. And you guys haven't done the same thing? Heck, 2 years ago you threatened to pulverize me, and yet nothing happened. In that case, Mom and Dad ground you every time you do stuff like this, Lenny pointed out. And all they even do is warn me about setting up pranks at their jobs.